the weird warts on its face, and it went around, and of course, we live in this age of like all the time. And somebody was like, "Oh my God, it's Bunny Armageddon," and a lot of people, came back and said, "It's been around for a long time. It's pretty benign. I mean, it's unsightly, but it's benign. It's a form of HPV."
Well, I tell you why I think the bunny virus is capturing popular attention. I think in a post-COVID world, I don't think everyone has really dealt with that whole COVID trauma yet. So every time you mention virus, it just, people are augmenting what they think could happen next. So, who knows? Fauci is still on the loose, right? He's still at large. You could grab one of these.
He would probably call it retirement
on Social Security. You see, I think it's all coming together here. What we're going to talk about today.
Why is he not in a gulag? Is it too late for frog marching and gulags?
I think we have to come to terms that it's just going to be one of that part of that whole bucket where Epstein list goes to is going to be in storage. Epstein list, Fauci getting prosecuted. So we're just going to put that in storage for a while and move on to
Russiagate hoax. No one's
Russiagate hoax.
Get frog marched.
Trump cleaning up the Social Security rolls. Well, I think that's big news for this week. I don't know what you guys. What
is that? I don't know what that is. What's the news?
So just a short summary. He found, or the people reforming Social Security found there are over 275,000 illegals that have been receiving Social Security. So that's the big headline. Well, they're off the rolls. And then they also found a large number of people that were still receiving Social Security. They're over 100 years old. So I don't know if Americans, how long lived they are, but some of them are 120 and 160.
So they found a lot of those from the Doge diggings, right? Several months ago.
I don't know if it's from that. I don't have the specifics.
No, that's where it started, I think.
Yeah, okay. I know that I heard the really old, the Methuselah recipients. I heard that already, but the 275,000 illegals currently on it. I think that's the newer part. And you said were they able to kick them off? Did they able to do that without a court challenge, or is there a court challenge?
Well, according to, let me pull up a post. They have been kicked off the rolls, according to what I'm seeing on X. But I think the larger story with this is that, people are debating, well, why do we have Social Security? The libertarians, it's a Ponzi scheme, and I told you so. There's this is one big I told you so. And then for the MAGA crowd, it's to showcase that Dems haven't been honest, because they in the last administration they have assured everyone there's no such thing as illegals receiving Social Security, and that's not true.
Right.
So this story is very useful all across the political spectrum, depending on how you want to spin it. So let me pull up the Social Security.
This is one of the overlaps that you get between conservatives and big government, the Democratic Socialists like Bernie Sanders. They want government to do everything. Most of us want government to do a lot less, as little as possible. And the Bernie Sanderses of the world often bitch about these abuses of Social Security and Medicaid and all these government services, because they understand, in their own twisted way, that if their worldview is to be implemented, you can't have this kind of abuse. So it's a little bit of a silver lining from that crowd, in my opinion, because he's certainly talked about this. And if you listen to the reportage and the commentary on, the ferreting out fraud that the Trump administration is doing, it goes something like, well, we wanted to be careful, but in general, we don't like that stuff either. Right. So I have, pretty positive hopes for this sort of stuff, the Doge stuff. And it's actually cool to see that there's still a flame alive for Doge, right? Even though the whole Elon Musk thing blew up and it was all awful. I think a lot of us that were Doge fans were like, "Oh shit, there goes our once in a generation opportunity to tighten our belt." But economically, we're seeing these weird. We'll get into this a little bit later, but these uncool PPI numbers, producer price index. We're seeing a lot of increased prices there, and I think that what we're going to see is when it's all said and done, everybody sort of did their part except for the House GOP. They spent too much money in the big beautiful bill, and I think that there's going to be a push to go back and cut in the next few months when they come back from recess.
Wait, so it's possible to go back and reconfigure the big?
No, not the big beautiful bill, but just to do other cuts. You got to remember the big beautiful bill was a reconciliation budgetary bill, which was very difficult, even theoretically, to cut a lot of the stuff out that I think even I wanted to cut out, the Dodgers. But that said, Congress did and the Senate did what they tend to do, which is fill everything with pork, which is a problem. But inflation and government spending is really, at the end of the day, what's keeping our interest rates high on our bonds. We spend too much. We're in too much debt. The deficit is too large, and we can nip around all these edges. Trump can, the Congress can pass, a lot of these supply side, growth driver initiatives. They can cut regulation, cut taxes. All this stuff is good for the economy, the economic engine. But as long as you have the government spending as much money and promising to spend as much money as it is still, it's going to drag everything down. And I think that there's going to be a come to Jesus in the next few months, because again, like 4 to 6 months, we're going to start to see the results of the big beautiful bill actually hitting the road, right? We're going to see no tax on tip. We're going to see the reduced taxes on Social Security, all this stuff. Some of the tax brackets came down, the child tax credit, all this stuff is going to start to hit. And then you're going to look around and be like, well, shit's still fucked up. Excuse my French, right?
Yeah.
And then they're going to point the spotlight where it needs to be pointed, which is on the spending. So that's my Pollyannish, positive prediction about how it's going to go down, because it's so bad. It's just so bad. The spending is going to make Trump's big, beautiful bill and his accomplishments not work. And he's going to have to focus back and fix that one part of it, because everything else is firing on all the cylinders, or is going to, that it needs to, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. I think so you could have expenditures written into law, but it doesn't mean that they have to be funded, right? Is that like the hack? Do you know what I mean? Like if you say you the big beautiful bill is committed to spend X trillion dollars, but the way to beat that is not to fund it. Isn't that what we did in the past?
Yeah,
before?
I mean, correct. I mean, the big beautiful bill basically is like, it's like you creating your household budget. You're saying, this is how much I want to allocate for this thing.
Right.
Yeah, for for the year or for the month. So that's like the reconciliation that they make. That's the overall goal, the overall plan. It's not the very specific, this is where this money is going to go being appropriated, that it's, it's not happening yet. So I guess that's the big gist of it. But I want to go back to the original topic, is this finding money that was spent on illegal aliens. For me, the most, I hadn't seen that story, believe it or not. I've been focusing on other things in life, and I totally missed that one. But what's most jarring about it all is, even though we had Doge in there kind of uncovering things and trying to show us where money was spent, no one went further and dug further to see exactly where this money was spent. We had a bunch of media coming out saying, oh, Doge is lying. They're not really showing you where the money is being spent and all this stuff, but nobody was actually continuing to dig further like that. That is what our responsible media should actually be doing. Yeah, prove that Doge is lying if Doge is lying. Great, that is responsible media as well, but dig deeper. Find out where the money is actually being spent. Why is Social Security, going towards default? Like, is that really realistic with what's been happening over the past, several decades since Social Security has been in existence? Is that realistically the spending that we're doing on American citizens who are retiring and collecting Social Security? Are they the reason why we're losing money in the hole? Is there some other reason, some other place that money is going, and nobody is digging? We've been relying on what we've been told by our media, by Democrats and Republicans over the years, that illegal aliens have not been getting this money, or it's being spent on the people who actually deserve to get it: Social Security, disability, Social Security, and retirement. So it just brings me back to this idea that we don't have a fully transparent government, and we rely on our media to go and investigate and find the truth and give it to us, and we don't have that. And so this is the highlight. I don't even know if these numbers are correct. You know what I mean? Like, I can't trust any of it, and that's where I sit. So I would rather err on the side of a government that spends the least, so that it has the least amount of opportunity to be corrupt. Knowing that it's always going to have some corruption in it, because we can't rely on the people who are supposed to hold them accountable to do their jobs.
So do you mean those numbers could be higher? And they're just saying 25.
They could be higher, they could be lower. I have no idea how to trust it.
Okay.
Unless you sit in front and show me the books. These are the ins, these are the outflows, this is who it's going to, with redacting names, all of that stuff. If I don't have a full transparency, I can't rely on
They don't know, Nikki.
Yeah.
We're finding out that we've always had a feeling that the data were all screwed up, across all of these government measures. But with the jobs report a couple weeks ago, this recent stuff, even yesterday's CPI, PPI, like, Wall Street is doing what Wall Street, like, nobody believes the official numbers anymore.
Correct. And but this is stuff that can be published in a way that's transparent and protects people's information. You don't need to know. We don't need to know, the Social Security numbers of the people who are getting this stuff, but we can have a breakdown of where the money is going in a detailed format. And we don't have that in any reliable way, and we don't have fact checkers, i.e. our journalists, going in and doing their job. We can't trust the oversight in our Congress, because they're going to favor publishing the information that supports whatever narrative they want to project to the American people. The ultimate oversight job is our media, and they're not doing it. So I don't trust any of them.
What's your take, Paul? Or do you? This is not something that...
Yeah, no, I agree with all that. I think, it's plus you have the revisions to numbers, right? And so, like, even the revisions can be massaged in a certain way. The transparency is a huge part of it. But in a way, it's like markets are going to do what markets do based on their own surveys, right? So, like, when you rely on government numbers, just like when you rely on government anything, you shouldn't give it much credence. But, right, there are massive flows of capital making massive decisions about where to allocate. We're talking trillions of dollars.
Well,
and they have their own metrics, right? Social
Security is different. We're not relying on surveys. The government knows exactly where that money is getting distributed. It is not a survey. It is not an estimate. It is real. It's real-time information that they could be giving us, and they're not.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I was thinking more PPI, CPI stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, we should have that.
Okay. Well, that was the headline that I want to roast. we
There's
started
something
off.
about PPI I want to mention, though, is that we've seen this sort of decoupling of PPI and CPI. PPI has been much higher than CPI, which suggests in the past few months, like this is PPI was very high, but I think that it's the producer price index, right? So that does suggest that tariffs are hitting producers and that those costs are increasing. So, it may be that, the impact of tariffs has been sort of hidden for a while, but now, it's starting to manifest, and eventually, it's going to manifest in perhaps not such a great way. I'm just saying, like, keep an eye out for that, because people have said different things about tariffs. They're not hurting the economy, or we're collecting money, but my feeling is still bearish on tariffs. So I would just keep that in mind.
What do you think will happen in Q4 then? I'm just curious. I mean,
I can't possibly predict. I mean, there's just so many moving parts, but I just, based on what we know, or what we think we know, about these numbers, like it doesn't. It suggests that the tariffs are hitting the producers, and that the producers, to some extent, may be able to hide costs to their customers, but they may not be able to do it for very long. That's what it tells me, but we'll see. I just want to make that point, but if we want to move on to something else, fine.
We'll just make one more point on the Social Security. We've all been around long enough. I mean, Social Security has always been like this, like, political turd football. Like you can't talk about it. Say what you want about Paul Ryan. He's not very popular, but he did have a career, after the Tea Party and into, the mid, like 2013, 2014, as being the guy that was willing to, talk about, cutting these entitlements, these unfunded liabilities. And, the very idea that Social Security was at 62 and 66 or 65, right, where you can take it out early at 62, or you can wait the extra 3 years and you get your full monthly, people are living longer. We all know that. The Social Security retirement age hasn't changed. And everybody, if you get them, a little bit drunk and get them alone in a room, they'll tell you that we have to raise the retirement age, because, that was for, those ages, the current ages were implemented back in a time where people usually died before those ages, right? Now people are living 20 years past. And whenever you bring up raising the retirement age, you have $1 million or $1 billion in political ads attacking you, saying, Paul Rossi wants to kill your grandma, and so does Nikki.
I do.
Terrible people. And
but that's just your
it's
grandma.
so disingenuous. I know you do. Because it's so obvious what you do. You raise the retirement age for everyone who's 17 and under, right? You don't touch it for people who have paid a penny into the system. 18 and up, you're 62, 65, just like it always was. 17 and under, you're 65 and 68, right? And all of the math that's been done on this, and it's not, it's not perfect math, because of your guys' points, like nobody knows. It's like this huge miasma of like gazillions of dollars and gazillions of people.
Miasma.
But they do know that if they just add even a couple years to it, it keeps it from going insolvent. It keeps it from being such a drain on everything we do. But nobody wants to talk about that. And that's just really frustrating to me, because it's like, can you really not explain that correctly? Like, for everybody who's 17 and under, you're going to go up because you haven't paid anything into it. It's not going to affect you until, 55 years from now. Everybody else will not go up. And it's weird how we cannot have that conversation. Nobody can make that suggestion without losing their bid for office. It's just very frustrating.
The other thing is the money just isn't invested well at all, which when you have inflation and all the other assets, right, are growing, whatever that Social Security money is, it's not being invested as wisely as individuals would be able to invest their own money. So the government is basically sort of
that's a whole
locking
that's the privatization argument, right?
Yeah, I don't think I would like to. I mean, I agree with you that if you're going to try to save it, that's probably the way to do it. But do we really want to have the government holding people's money for longer instead of less time? You know what I mean? Like,
I agree with you, but
I think,
it is what it is. It's a system that's been implemented.
yeah, but you're basically saving a broken system or a suboptimal system. Do you want to do that? Is there
Totally.
another way?
I would agree with that. I'm literally taking it from the POV of if it's going to hang around, like it's got to be fixed.
Well, yeah, I mean now like you've got people that have lost their money to a government entity, which is they're waiting to get it back from them. So it's in medias res with this whole situation that they're, you'd have to be fair to those people. Why not just? I mean, if you Eric Hartman could be a king, what would you do to fix it?
Oh, what wouldn't I do?
Oh yeah, what would you do?
It's tough. I think that most Republicans, I don't want to speak for you guys, but a modicum of a safety net, something there. We're a wealthy country. That seems to be what the vast majority of people think, that there should be some help there, right? But over decades, that safety net, right, which is medical, food stamps, Social Security, they have exploded, and they've become extremely generous, and they've become extremely, the default is to give it away, right? To assume that the person deserves it, or assume that it should keep going, as opposed to when it started off, it was incumbent upon the person who was getting it to sort of, jump through a bunch of hoops. And there was also a huge social stigma attached to a lot of these things that's completely gone these days. It's turned into entitlement. The whole enterprise is just screwed. I mean, it's so expensive, and we've literally hooked millions and millions, tens of millions of people on these programs, and they vote because they're on these programs, right? Like, Trump is cutting, EBT, Omaha's cutting EBT for shitty foods. I mean, I know that Nikki has a really good takes on this, and I get it, right? But like the fact that these programs exist and they're so well funded creates these problems, and they're bad problems. They really are.
Yeah.
What about private brokerage? Like the government says, here, we're gonna basically give you back your money now. We're gonna create this brokerage account. 30% of it, has to stay in some government thing, but you get like 70, some percentage of it, it's yours. You can do what the hell you want with it.
That already exists in places like Singapore.
Oh, really? Well, how do they do it?
In Singapore, the system, we have something called, well, not we. When I was a Singaporean, back, it was called a CPF. It's called Central Providence Fund. So every Singaporean citizen has to have an account dedicated to them. It's not a pool. So when you start earning, it goes directly to your account.
And what are the average returns? I'm just curious. It's a great,
So the government would take some of that, not all of it, and invest it in the stock market. I don't know the specifics, so that would help, I guess, keep up with inflation, and I think the government also would contribute some to it. But the idea is that it's yours. It doesn't belong to a pool like here in the U.S. as Social Security. And then when you could start withdrawing at the age of 55, I believe, for certain uses only, like to buy a house or to pay for medical expenses. And that's how they got around. That was one of their plan for helping their citizens build equity.
It's great. I mean, I think that's preferable. So
I have to tell you this. So when I immigrated to this country, the IRS, I had my CPF there, right? The IRS taxed my CPF when I brought it over because they treated that as income, and I had to contest with them. So I basically, how much was in my CPF? Quite a lot,
Even though you hadn't, withdrawn any of it yet.
Yeah, that's the thing. It was a government account.
Wealth tax.
It was a government mandated account. And when all was said and done, when I was dealt with the IRS, I had nothing left. It was zero. So they took everything. The IRS took everything.
Fucking bastards.
And the onus was on you to
Yes,
prove.
I had to prove. And on top of it, they were also going to fine me.
Yep.
For not reporting that I had an account, and I had to explain
That's
that
happened to me.
I didn't have a choice. I was born and raised in Singapore, and the government had a law like you guys have Social Security. They said the government set up the account for me. It's not like I was offshoring some account, and when I was making money, the government took my earnings and put it into the account, and I could not take. I did not have access to it. The only time I had access to it was because after I renounced my citizenship in Singapore and came to the US, that's when I had access to it. But the IRS treated that as me trying to conceal an account overseas. So on top of taxing me, that account, they were also going to levy a fine. There's a fine for, I think people with overseas account know this, that you there's a penalty and a tax on top of some of the tax. So when all was said and done, I had nothing. It was all taken away.
Wow.
The CPF
going to another country and having your 401k drained completely.
Basically, it was my 401k was confiscated by the IRS. That was mandated by the Singapore government, and
That's insane.
And that's that.
Welcome to America.
Yeah, well, welcome to America,
land of the free. Land of the
But back to answer your question, Paul. Yeah, this kind of scheme, if you will, exists in places like Singapore, and that was how in Singapore, that's how they got to creating the safety net. I think we're talking about safety net, right?
So can I just to clarify that, Perseus, is this every single citizen? So
Yes.
Every single employed citizen, so whether they work for the government or not?
Yes, every single.
Is paying into this? Okay, because in the U.S., federal, if you work for the government, you're not paying into Social Security.
I did not know that. Wait, hold on. Wait, if you work for the government, you don't pay into Social Security?
No. When I work for,
that's news to me.
My husband doesn't pay into Social Security. He works.
But he will be getting Social Security.
He's in law enforcement. No, he will not. He will be getting
a pension.
He has a retirement and a pension. Yeah. When I worked for, I did my medical training, my residency training at the county hospital. I did not pay into Social Security. So we got we had an Ohio pension fund that we paid, that we contributed to. So it was to that. And then the problem is, though, I kind of go back to I think it was Eric. I don't remember if it was Eric or Paul about where the money should go into some private type of a fund, to an investment fund, rather than the government, screwing it up and using the money, investing it improperly or outsourcing it to places where it shouldn't go. If we can see where the money is being invested and directed ourselves, or have some sort of say in that, I think that would be helpful. I mean, a lot of these pension funds are also being misdirected, so that's another problem that we're seeing. So I don't know that having every citizen do that is, unless we totally change how we do everything, we structure everything in the U.S. If that is helpful. I mean, I'm intrigued by the idea, though, that it's forcing people to save some money for their retirement, so that taxpayers aren't, directly funding it. But who gets to control that, where it goes and how it's saved and and secured is the other issue that needs to be resolved.
So in Singapore, that's what people are confused about the Singapore. I mean, you have something that looks like free market, but it's a very authoritarian society too.
Yeah.
So that form of government is called third way socialism. It's called third way socialism. It's a fusion of free market, but then it's total control by the government, and that assumes that the government knows what's best for you. So I know it's very confusing to people, but that's the Singaporean system. And I don't think it would translate that here to America, but the rough outline is that if you want to have a social safety net, then maybe that's one way of doing it. But I don't know how that America would transition into that kind of system now, like where you have a private account and it's locked. It's almost like a trust, right? It's a trust. You can't touch it until you're a certain age.
Or there's
But you
penalties.
can make the investment decisions within that, right?
No, you can't.
You can't.
You can't, because the government don't want you to gamble with your money either. So it's a very conservative investment. It's invested in certain bonds, and like I didn't even know what some of the investment.
Well, at least it's invested, right? That's the difference between Social Security here. It just goes into your earmark. It's not the general fund, but it's not invested.
You have to. The government had to invest it in the stocks too, because what you put in, it won't be. You won't accumulate enough to the age of 55. It has to keep pace with inflation or whatever. Yeah. So you put in, the government matches some, and then also a lot of it was also invested in stocks to pay dividends. It's
okay.
And yeah, most Singaporeans, when they hit 55, they're like, whoa, look at all this money. It's been there. It's the government had been keeping an eye on it.
Well, it sounds like they're just using index funds, or something. You know what I mean? It's not like the.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that part, but
they're choosing where it's going.
Yeah, but let's say in the U.S., if we decided that maybe Gen Z is the starting line, or what's next, Gen Z or Gen Alpha is the start. There's a new starting line that could we possibly get them off of the Social Security grid and into starting new? But then what is the overseeing authority that you can trust? And we have a problem with authority here, rightfully.
But the argument against it, and I don't support this, right? But the stock market is, it's been going up for a long time, right? But it doesn't always go up. Something could happen. We could have a great recession or even a great depression again, and everything tanks and everything goes sideways. And if you have everybody's, unfortunately, there are a lot of people that only use Social Security as their retirement savings, right? People are stupid. I hate, not to be cruel about it, but you know what I mean? Like, there's way too many people out there that only have Social Security for retirement. And the argument is, if you privatize it, right, you have these same dumb people, again, no offense, who are in charge of their investments, to what end? Is it some sort of government, index fund that you can do, right? And the argument again is that as inefficient as the current system is, where you just you're essentially stolen from, then it goes into a fund, it goes into again, it's a pyramid scheme. It really is, like, because the people putting in now, the younger people paying in now are literally transferring that money over to the retirees, right? There's no account. There's no.
Here's that's a major piece of this. I mean, so what is deducted? Your contribution as an employee is it's only 6% of your income. So if you think that 6% of your income is going to be enough to retire on, that is a fundamental problem with how people are educated about funding their retirement. That's a concern that needs to be addressed. And I do want to clarify, the federal employees actually do pay into that federal employee retirement system, I think it's called. It's FERS. Part of that money does go to Social Security. It's the state and local governments employees that don't necessarily pay into Social Security. So just wanted to clarify that.
But is that a private account then? This for federal employees? So they have this kind of pension account. Is it private, specific to them? Are they like, you know what I mean? It's not a pool. Is it a pooled account, or is it?
They can't personally manage it.
They can't.
Yeah, it's a pool.
So.
Yeah. And you can't personally manage it, like even the state and local ones. Like I can't. So I was substitute teacher at one point too. So I paid into the teachers' retirement fund, and excuse me, and then my working for the county hospital, I paid into the Ohio pension fund. It wasn't until after I retired from those positions where I could actually direct my payments to certain funds. But you have like two options. You don't really have, you can't, unless you take all of your money out and put it into your own kind of 401k, or portfolio, then you can't do anything. You can't direct the funds specifically yourselves. So I would imagine it's the exact same way for the.
You have to do a rollover, right? After
Yeah, you'd have to roll it over into a different retirement fund, and then allocate those funds. But I don't even know. I don't know about that for the federal employees because I don't know any of them enough to talk, specifically about that topic. But while you're putting into it, you're not directing your funds. They're doing it. Your employer, who is the government, is doing that.
Well, so the takeaway from my story is I don't even try to think of having an overseas account or anything like that, just because the IRS will find you. They have, if they could confiscate, if they can confiscate the entirety of my CPF savings, my CPF account, they will fine you
Right.
somehow. So,
and again, the onus is on you to prove them wrong.
yeah, and right.
And they're unresponsive, they're sloppy. They make these errors in their own favor on purpose.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. Yeah.
Oh, actually, I forgot to miss one part, and then we'll move on to other headlines to roast. So, how the IRS found out was that when the Singapore government closed my CPF account and transferred to my U.S. bank account, guess what? In all U.S. banks are required to report to the CPF to the IRS when they see any kind of so-called large transactions happening. So your transactions are now being monitored. Like all banks are required to report to the IRS if they see a transaction
over 10,000, right?
A 10K and more.
Yeah. I mean, but then of course, since that wasn't enough, they lowered. Basically, now if you do less amounts that add up to 10 over a certain time period, that's called a structured.
Isn't it $400? Didn't they make it $400 under Biden?
Oh, did they? Did they even lower it that much?
That was $650.
I whatever. Know. Yeah, it's an amount like $400, $600 where, all of a sudden, people that were doing Venmos with each other were like, let's keep it under 6. I'll give you 2 500 Venmos instead of 1 750 Venmo because we don't want to tip off the IRS. Like, this is how people behave. People respond to this stuff. These rules make criminals out of ordinary people, right? Because you're avoiding this shit. You don't want to raise red flags. You don't want to get on anybody's radar to have these sloppy ass, bureaucrats and, people come down on you because again, they can make a mistake. It's always in their favor, just like Monopoly, right? It makes a mistake in the IRS's favor.
Yeah, but so just that's the thing. All our banking system are very much on the IRS grid. So
absolutely,
they will find out. They will,
it's they say it's for crime. It's for like money laundering or large transactions. They want to sort of have visibility and all this stuff, but it ends up hurting normal people.
Yeah. So how do we pivot from that to, we want to talk about the mRNA. What does mRNA stand for?
It stands for messenger RNA. Just to go back a little bit of anatomy and physiology, the human body, everybody has DNA in all of their cells that directs their production of proteins that make up their entire body. And the way that the DNA works, it needs to be translated into proteins using messenger RNA. So basically, it takes that code that the DNA has, then transcribes it, then turns it into, and then translates it into creating a specific protein. So it's the step before you actually get proteins. When we started using mRNA technology as an innovative way to treat diseases, to prevent infections. With the COVID vaccine was when it became, most popular. It was creating they actually used the template for the spike protein on the COVID virus, and the COVID-19 coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2 virus. They used that template for the protein that codes for that spike protein. Sort of went back and did a reverse engineering type of thing and made a messenger RNA that when it's injected into a human being, then it could code for use, our own human resources to actually take that mRNA and then turn it into this actual spike protein that comes from that virus. And then mount an immune system so that we develop our own antibodies to that. The problem is it was a very novel technology, and the trials were, I don't even know, I would even say that they were actually rushed, even though a lot of people tout Operation Warp Speed as being like, a major phenomenon that, really caused people to die. That's a whole different subject, but the vaccines do not go through the same multiple steps of scrutiny that other medications do, because they're touted most often are emergency use when they first come out. And then, and so it's a little bit of a faster process, and I'm making this very simple right now, but it went through a little bit faster with Operation Warp Speed in the hopes of trying to get people away from lockdown again and protect more people. So all the faulty thinking of the public health policy COVID-19 comes back into play. But anyway, it got to market, and then you started seeing major side effects, or people were complaining about side effects. And then people felt that their complaints were being ignored because we don't have a very transparent or reliable way of measuring safety once vaccines hit market in the United States. And so people were having side effects, reporting side effects, and being ignored, being sick, being harmed from these viruses. What has been shown is that the risks of inoculation have far outweighed any benefits that healthy people in particular are getting from these vaccines. So the reason why Kennedy became, I believe, so popular is because he's been so critical of these vaccines, but particularly in his 2024 campaign. A lot of people latched on to him who were Republican and Democrat because of the way that they felt public policy centered around vaccine mandates. And because he was speaking to that audience directly about his concerns about this mRNA technology, people, trusted him. And that was a big part of the MAHA agenda, was to then basically, one, remove these mandates, but also kind of get rid of the technology. So this week, the director of the National Institute of Health, Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, wrote an op-ed and got published in the Washington Post. And I believe he also went on Steve Bannon's show to explain why they were pulling $500 million in grant contracts for mRNA technology. I haven't looked into details about whether or not this goes further into kind of research about, for cancer treatments and other type of therapies, but I do know that this specifically, Dr. Bhattacharya was talking about the fact that the public has lost trust in mRNA technology, specifically for the vaccines. And that was his rationale for cutting those funds. And so if you don't have a public that trusts your product and you're pushing that on people and forcing that on people, then that product needs to come off of market. That's his position on it. I believe this is a win for MAGA and for MAGA and MAHA, because this is definitely one of the things that they campaigned on, and so this is huge. If it does stifle innovation for companies that really, really, truly want to cure certain types of cancers or use it for good in other health platforms, or further develop it so that it's a better and safer technology for vaccines. I don't know that I hope that private funding will continue, for that type of thing. And I hope that the government, the NIH, would actually look specifically at its utility for those things. But it is reassuring that we're thinking about the safety of American people and also public opinion. You can't win, if you don't have public opinion. So that's my
Paul,
take.
what's your take? Were you was your industry, how was your industry impacted by the COVID mandates? Is that something that has been done?
Yeah, I mean, if I hadn't been canceled for, anti-woke, my anti-woke position, I would have been canceled for not getting the jab, because I would have been fired because they were requiring it. I would have had to I would have had to find some other means to keep my job. That would probably involve deception of one form or another. Interestingly, I gave a talk at the Manhattan Institute during the lockdown, and for all of their touted and very good work that they've done, they were requiring vax cards for people to go.
To Manhattan Institute?
They wouldn't let me in on the panel if I didn't have a vax card.
Oh wow!
So I had to run around the corner to the CVS to get a kit and test myself in the bathroom, and then they, show that I was COVID negative, and then they let me speak. Just a little look. They've done a lot of great things. I really like some of their work that they publish in their journal. But it's New York. You sort of, part of it was that the venue they were holding it in, I think it was more that the venue required it, but they didn't really go to bat.
That's a cop out right there. I'm gonna, sorry to cut you off like that, but I know that was one of the things that kind of fractured. I know there's some fracturing right now on outside, right? That was another fracture too, because a lot of people that we thought were libertarian or what have you took the side of COVID on this. One of the least known scandal here in New York City was that the young Republican group was requiring people to have vax status to be allowed into their meetings. So that kind of made me question, like, are you really on board with what I believe in, or does it take? Do you know what I mean? Like,
some of it I think was like Trump. The Operation Warp Speed was sort of was tied with Trump, and then that sort of, some people were like, oh well, if Trump did the vaccine, well then maybe that's okay. I think that played a role at the time. Maybe not explicit, but implicit. But yeah, no, I mean, I'm not bent out of shape about it. I mean, it's just an interesting footnote to my experience in that time.
Which we haven't resolved yet, because this, I want to know, we were talking about how one of the shortcomings of Trump 2.0 is that we haven't seen any legislations to make sure that this doesn't happen again, right? Are people done not talking about that anymore? Is there any legislation in the works to prevent COVID lockdown from happening again.
No, but I do think that a lot of people in the country are inoculated against the second attempt. Like that's the real immune system, the democratic immune system.
That's the
People are not
safeguard.
going to stand for it if they try it. That more people will not stand for it than the first time.
The safeguard needs to be the American people. That should be the lesson that's learned. That you need to stand up. You need to not take it. You need to not do it. Not comply.
But that's easier said than done.
Just objection.
I know, but that's easier said than done if they, turn off your bank account.
But see, here's the deal. Here's the deal. I think the very first time, a lot of people were scared, and a lot of people initially really supported lockdowns. So we can't,
the vast majority of people initially supported lockdowns.
Yes,
vast majority of people.
Yes. But now I think more people are leery of it and understand that they're not going to work, so that if they even attempt it again, there will be a lot of pushback.
Oh yeah, so I do agree with that.
Yeah.
I mean, if they turn off the banks, Perseus, if they turn off your bank, like there will be pitchforks and torches in the street. Like town halls will be burned.
Well,
like,
okay, I'm usually the hopeful one. I'm a hopeful offering hopeful beans here, but I didn't see any indication of that first time around. So I don't know how pitchforks will be coming out the second time. Hopefully there won't be a second time, but that was like a major. I
think it'll happen, Perseus, because people, like to Nikki's point, and Paul's point, everybody was scared at first. The vast majority of people were in favor of lockdowns, and they loved Fauci at first. They were like, "Yay, it's going to save us!" And it was like 2 weeks.
We trusted him.
Just 2 weeks, and a lot of people's radar went off, and there was like, "Oh shit," and then it wasn't 2 weeks, and so we all lived through this. The amount of people that were against it grew and grew and grew with every week. You got more and more people. Finally, there was a critical mass. And I think that, I don't want to put words in Nikki's mouth, but I think what she's saying is that so many people went through this, and at some point in that calendar pushed back. They realized that, holy shit, this was terrible. We should have never agreed to it. And what Paul's saying is that if it starts rearing its ugly head again, there's a ton of people that will say, hell no, right off the bat. They will not have that that runway, that on-ramp again of 2 weeks. They try and put masks on again. They're going to be like, nope. Try and do stuff in schools. Nope. Not going to happen.
Well, the mask thing is really funny too, because now you got Democrats wanting to write legislation in California because they don't want ICE wearing masks.
Okay.
If they try to come out with masking again, I don't know if that's going to work so well.
But don't you think there should be at least some like official protocol and written procedure? Like, you government people, you cannot do this in this situation again. I mean, that needs to be written, I think.
Of course, I would love to see a new sort of, pandemic policy.
That's what I mean. Like
of course, I would love to see that. But at the same time, it's still up to the people, because the states ran with things even after the federal government started kind of pulling back on things. The states were still locked down. So this is, the 10th Amendment is still in place. So you still have to have the people fighting against a tyrannical government. When you got executives speaking, when you got health departments making directives in your state. Yeah. They have people who have no authority whatsoever legislatively. Like, that's insane.
Like, you can write stuff on a piece of paper, but like they'll find a loophole around it if they think they can get away with it, like the emergency authorization and
that's the thing. So much of what the government did on the federal level, state level, and local level was illegal. Like, and it's not an exaggeration.
Yes.
Right? The stuff that the government did with, for instance, masks on airplanes. They had they do not have the legal authority to do that. A lot of the stuff they did locally, shutting down things, they did not have a legal authority to do that, especially to say to the, the seed stores and the mom and pops and everything, you must close. Oh, but the strip club, the liquor store, and the big box store can stay open. We all saw that stuff. They picked and chose. And to Paul's point, they used emergency. I'm declaring emergency. Like, they can't do that. The only state that pushed back was Wisconsin. The Supreme Court in Wisconsin knocked them down very, very quickly. But the rest of the places were politicized. They were scared. And in so many instances, from the cop on the street to, a judge in the state or in the Capitol, they actually broke the rules because they were like, oh, this is an emergency. This is we're all going to die if we don't color outside the lines this one time. And again, you can't do that. We have rules, we have laws. You have to follow the laws. And unless there are going to be prosecutions of the people that broke those laws the first time, what are we going to do? Right? There's none of that. There's no appetite for that. And it's very, very concerning because that's the first step. Perseus, we already have rules in place. We just need to enforce them.
I don't
The
know what
government can't do that.
I don't see.
We can't
so I
pull a
don't know
Michael
what-
Scott from the office and say, I declare emergency.
Yeah, but you said there are the rules. I don't know where are the rules then. I don't. Where's the rule that says that and you cannot just declare emergency?
Well, first of all, the one there's some in the Constitution. They shut down churches. They decreed that people could not gather. You can't do that.
You couldn't have a party on your own property in your own house.
Absolutely, you can't. They did things that they're not
your neighbors would
legally
inform
and
on you.
constitutionally allowed to do, and they did it.
Just like in the whole, Kevin Bass put out a tweet reminder of an arrest of a guy who was waterboarding, but boarding. Not
the Malibu paddleboarder.
Yes, that dude, the paddleboarder dude. Getting arrested. He's out on the water by himself. Like, come on, that's not. What law is that? What law was that?
It was an emergency decree.
He was unsafe to.
I would like to see a popular rebuke and reprimand of the people who exercise this arbitrary abuse of power, and I'm not seeing that. I think it needs to be in a written form, and we can't. I'm just not confident that if it comes around again that we can just say the people will rise up this time. I don't know, because
it's organically happening. The Maha movement is doing a lot of that. You got to remember though that Trump was the one that signed the 15 days to slow the spread. I mean, was he the biggest authoritarian lockdown guy? No, but he did it.
Yes,
he went along with it.
Yes,
he propped up Fauci. He did it for political reasons.
Yes, he did.
Right? Again, you have to remember that in spring of 2020, right? In January, everybody was focused on impeachment, right?
Yes.
Trump was like, hey, there's this virus burbling over here. Everybody's like, shut up, racist.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
right. And then
and Fauci even downplayed it in January.
They did, and it was don't wear masks.
In New York, they were telling us if you go to China, if you avoid Chinatown because you're worried about the virus, you're racist. You shouldn't have.
You were racist.
Right.
They had a program in Italy called Hug a Chinese. Did you guys hear about that?
Sorry, what did you say? I missed it.
In Italy, they had a very woke government-sponsored social media campaign that was called Hug a Chinese.
Yeah.
And it happened in February because there were a lot of direct flights because there was that
Hug a Chinese.
A lot of Asian people from other countries were getting hugged. It was very confusing to them. I'm not Chinese. Why are you hugging me?
Exactly. It was insane. But the Italian government produced this social media campaign that encouraged people to go up and show their appreciation to Chinese. And it was designed to fight. And it was weird because you got to remember that even in early COVID, when, they were like, you can't call it the Wuhan flu. It's got to be called COVID-19. You can't mention where this thing potentially burbled up from. And everybody's looking around like, that's the first time in history we've been told that, because it's been the Spanish flu. It's been the Hong Kong flu came around, and, the Hong Kong flu was raging when Woodstock happened. Right? Talk about, Sturgis and, gatherings. Woodstock was a pretty big one. But in spring 2020, lockdown was popular. Fauci was popular. People wanted masks. Do you remember how mad people got when Fauci said, oh, you don't need a mask. It just might catch a little spittle, but, it's all good. People were like, what? We need protection.
Mm-hmm. I just want to drop this little trivia here that people are not aware of. History trivia. You guys heard of the Black Death, right? In the Middle Ages, that wiped out a lot of the population in Europe. It's most scholars agree where that plague kind of originated from. Can you guess the country?
Oh, we know.
What
It
country?
originated in China. It came
Yes.
through the trading routes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and then I think 1,000 years before that, there was something a lesser known plague, but it almost destroyed the entire Roman Empire. It was called the Antonine Plague in the 2nd century. It almost wiped out like over 50% of Rome. Guess where that plague originated from? China.
Oh, come on. Really?
Yes, it came through this. So, hug a Chinese.
Hug a
Okay.
Chinese.
Yes, Chinese. I think it's like the
Well, so just real quick, the point I was trying to make, we got off a little bit, was that the roadblock here is going to be Trump. You know, he's very reluctant to revisit this. And when it is brought up, he doesn't talk about lockdown, doesn't talk about masks. He talks about warp speed. And even though people, even in his inner circle, have been like, dude, shut up, stop talking about it. He looks at the success of warp speed purely from an organizational, managerial standpoint. And I've always contended that if he sort of breaks those things apart, he can actually still claim a little victory, right? But he hasn't gotten to that point yet. He's still refusing to admit that, you know, the jabs were terrible. I mean, again, I knew when the jabs launched in early 21, personally, I knew about 10, 11, 12 people who got severely injured immediately. Seriously, like one of my main clients just out. Like she got the first shot. So she got sick in January. She went to her doctor. Doctor's like, I recommend you get the jab. And she's like, well, I just got COVID. And he's like, no, it's even more protective, right? Remember this like this PR campaign? Like, yeah, you know, your natural immunity, the shots will like boost it. And so she got the first shot. She immediately was in bed for like 2 weeks. She scraped herself up, went to the appointment again. And she's like, I don't think I should get the second one. And her doctor's like, no, it'll be even more protective. So he jabbed her with the second one. She literally can't get out of bed for like 4 months, like has to shut down her business. It was awful. And she goes back to her doctor and she's like, I really think that shot really hurt me. And he was like, you don't bring that up in my office ever again. And as a matter of fact, you're no longer my patient. I need you to leave.
Whoa.
I'm not kidding. And locally, we had several people that I knew. There was a girl that was in between college and high school. The day it was at CVS for like the normies, it was a little bit further into the spring. Her and like 4 of her girlfriends trotted down, literally taking selfies of themselves with masks, like doing our part. She gets the shot. She fucking dies that evening. It was in our town. This young girl went to CVS with 4 of her girlfriends, gets the jab, takes her selfie, got her little sticker. She goes home and she fucking dies. Now, look, again, this whole conversation, like, is it because of the shots? I don't know. You know,
I mean, but everybody seemed to have a story. So you would have that story, and then you would talk to somebody else, and they would have a story.
Exactly.
And it was like, you know, friend of a friend, fell palsy, immediate friend, tinnitus. You know, this other guy, you know, heart palpitations, and you're just like, after a while, you're just like, no, I'm not. I'm not.
I was wait and see at first. I was not like, I'm not ever going to get this thing. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to rush. Right? Like this seems a little new. Nikki called it. It was novel. There was a lot of novel during COVID.
Yeah.
And not when the entire universe embraces something novel, I'm like, yeah, nope. What?
Don't be an early adopter of anything. It's probably not a bad.
Maybe even an iPhone, but
yeah, but then you know,
injectable, powerful.
So I heard these stories, and then when I saw De Blasio eating the burger and saying, or having the fries, like eating the fries, and like you're gonna get free
stuff in
like that immediately. That was I was like, there's no fucking way I'm getting this shot.
No way.
Like that was for some reason
pushing so hard.
All these stories, and then seeing that, I was like, all the little switches were pointed in the same direction, and I was like, no way.
Yep.
You're gonna have to basically imprison me and waterboard me and inject me if you want.
Well, and the technology, and Nikki touched on this a little bit, but the technology existed before COVID. It was this gene therapy stuff that was, you know, again, the whole testing mechanism of the FDA and the like, it was fraught to begin with, right? They don't, they're sloppy, right? They actually approve a lot of things that should never be approved. The vaccines are a whole other thing. They do not do placebo, you know, double blind, like gold standard
How
studies.
much? I had a question. How much of to Dickie or Eric, like how much of the lack of testing is due to the fact that there's limited liability in legal cases?
Oh, I would think that's a big part of it.
Thing, right? Yeah.
And
So
it's,
like,
and especially when you have multiple pharmaceutical companies trying to compete
Yes.
against one another to be the one that gets picked for, you know, funding. So
yeah.
And
that's always been the case for all vaccines. Like you can't sue a pharma
Since Reagan did it in what,
Yeah.
like 86 or something.
I know. It's so funny how like Reagan keeps coming up as like, you know,
It's him and his amnesties.
favorite conservative president, but a lot of the stuff that
But
happened.
it's the good intentions, Nikki, right?
It's
Like
always the good
it was
intentions.
done with
He
great
also
intention.
tapped funding for residency programs, so which is why we don't have enough doctors. One of the reasons why we don't have enough doctors in the country. You know, so it's lots of things. Gun laws, okay. Some gun restrictions.
So on the topic of viruses, I was hoping to get everyone's take on the plague that's happening in Colorado. Has anyone heard of the potential next lockdown, which is known as the rabbit zombie disease?
Is that rapid zombie apocalypse?
Oh my God. I think it's because the people like it's the horror of something. Like tentacles are a very primal horror for people, like just that physical form. It's almost like snakes. The combination of a cute little bunny rabbit with this horrific tentacle form is like the melding of two opposites that make people freak out even more. So it's not, I mean, and on one level, yes, it's just a animal disease. You know, it's not going to affect humans, but visually and aesthetically, it's like horrifying. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's a visual dissonance, like huge dissonance there, right? Bunny is cute.
Yeah.
Tentacles. You said Cthulhu. I like that. People know the Lovecraft reference.
The old ones, like the idea of like some primal evil forcing its way through the face of the cute little bunny. Like that's.
Now remember this. Maybe this is the curse of Peter Cottontail. The Cottontail coronavirus that went in stealing people's vegetables out of their gardens.
That's right.
You know,
it's karma.
I'm just, I'm thinking like, is this giving Fauci any ideas? Like, is it, oh boy, that's another fun.
Yeah,
I don't think so. I just think it's another social media distraction and source of alarm for people. And there's always something weird that people are seeing for the first time that goes viral on social media and becomes a thing, and it's not really a thing.
Yeah, I was trying to get Grok to generate a bunny with this. It's called the papilloma virus, wearing a mask, but Grok doesn't want to. Grok does not want to cooperate. I've done multiple prompts. So I wanted to. The prompt was a blonde cheerleader hugging a bunny with this virus, wearing a mask, but it did not want to cooperate. So I don't know if.
Sometimes with Grok, there's a little trick. Like it'll actually generate the image and then hide it if it's something that doesn't pass the filter. And if you're quick enough, you can actually like save the image before it says it can't display it.
Yeah,
I don't know. It seems ridiculous that they would actually do that, but it does work. I've done it a couple times with a couple images.
Maybe we should. I think we should do like a live Grok drawing session.
Yeah,
for a happy bean. That would be interesting to do. Yeah, I just tried to do one, but of a blonde cheerleader hugging this rabbit with this condition, but it wouldn't do it. So with that said, will this double as a happy bean, or does anyone have a happy bean to offer?
This is good.
I think this is fine. I don't think it's a plague, though. Apparently, this has just been around for a long time. They know what this is.
Can we show Pete Buttigieg drinking out of a 40 in a brown paper bag?
Is that a Grok prompt?
No, that's an actual thing.
Uh,
I'll send it to you.
you-
He's
well,
trying to get more of the black vote, I guess, by pandering to
Oh my
stereotypes.
God. Are you serious?
Yeah,
Yeah.
check this out.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
really fun.
let's wrap it with that link. Let's wrap that with that happy bean. Okay, what do we have here?
Will Riley reposted this. It doesn't. They don't even look like real people. They look like sort of like social, like
Oh,
marketing.
wait a minute. Didn't that happen during his campaign for president?
Okay,
That's
maybe
not,
maybe
I
this is
don't know
old.
that that's new. Is that new?
I don't know this reference. Called drinking a 40 in the hood, the apex modern example.
Oh, Colt 45 works every time.
It's in the bag. It's in the
Okay.
brown. He's brown bagging it.
But then someone pointed out that the
Wasn't
actual
it during his campaign. I don't think that's new.
No, it's probably not new, but I think it's resurfaced because he's polling with the almighty 0% among Black Democrats.
Oh,
I
This
don't know
is-
what the. Okay.
This is resurfaced because I think
Is that the drink of the hood? Is that
suboptimal.
okay.
That-
See if my link works for your close up.
Oh my God.
GPT for the win.
Oh my
no,
God.
let's
He's funny.
actually no. I would do this one and share this tab. Oh,
It doesn't have the horns, but you know.
I love it. I love it. Oh, it's so adorable.
On it. Oh my God.
It's
I'm having a nightmare.
It's oh god, it makes me like, oh, I'm scratching my skin now. It's better than the show.
I'd rather watch the cheerleader, than have to look at this, honestly.
Nikki, you got homework. So your homework is next time can you do a version of this but with a blonde, maybe Sydney Sweeney or a cheerleader hugging this.
A male
so
Minnesota
adorable. I love
making cheerleader.
All right. Well, that was a lot of fun. I'm gonna save it. Thank you. You just made my day. I love it. So anyway, with that said, thank you for making episode 48 happen. Have a great weekend.
Woohoo.
And I'll catch you guys again.
All right, guys.
Bye,
Take care.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.